I'm Andre Haynes from the Armed Forces Chamber PAC, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the joint endorsement interviews. This is the third for Veterans in Politics International, Nevada Democrat Veterans and Military Families Caucus, Nevada Veterans Association, and the Armed Forces Chamber PAC. Bless you both. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Foreign Exchange, Ava Bravo, Justice of the Peace Department 2 candidate, Shelley Berkeley, Las Vegas Mayor candidate, and Christian Bishop, Nevada State District 5 candidate. Please remember to support the silent auction. At this time, we'll turn over this session to our moderator, Patricia Lee, Nevada Supreme Court Justice.
Thank you, Andre. So first, I would like to thank all of our esteemed panelists for participating today. It's been a long day, and thank you for staying engaged and asking some really important questions. And thank you for the candidates for coming out today on this rainy Saturday afternoon to share with us a little bit about who you are as candidates. I've been asked to explain the interview process, which I will do right now. So the panel members will first introduce themselves by giving their name, position, and the organization they represent. Then we will ask each candidate to introduce yourselves. Please also include why you are running and seeking the endorsements of these organizations. You will have 1 minute. Please remember that this is an interview, not a debate. I would like to remind everybody of that. That is an interview, not a debate. So when asked a question from a panel member, you will direct your answer to the panel members only. When you receive a question from a panel member, you will be given 1 minute to answer their question. Andre will be the timekeeper. Once you receive the yellow card, you will be given 15 seconds to wrap up. Once you are given the red card, Andre will call time. And at the conclusion of the interview, we would ask that each of you give a closing statement, just reiterating why you're running for office and why you are seeking the endorsement of these fine organizations. So let's get started with introductions first. Can we start at the end there with Mr. White?
Good afternoon, gents. My name is Gary White from the Montford Point Marine Association. I am representing the Nevada Democratic Veterans and Military Families Caucus.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Mikey Kelly. I'm from the Nevada Democratic Veterans and Military Families Caucus.
Good afternoon. I am Martin Walker from the Veterans in Politics International.
Thanks for coming. Matthew DeFalco, Nevada Democratic Veterans and Military Families Caucus.
Good afternoon. Timothy Treffinger, Veterans in Politics International.
Andre Haynes, Armed Forces Chamber PAC.
Patsy Brown, Armed Forces Chamber PAC.
Yvonne Malone, Veterans in Politics International.
Madeline Kelly, Nevada Democrat Veterans.
Thank you, panelists. Now let's start on this end with Mr. Flippo, and if you can introduce yourself again, you have 1 minute.
Perfect. Thank you for having us today. I'm David Flippo. I'm running for CD4. I am a lifelong military member because I was raised in the military. My father was military. In fact, our family has served since the Revolutionary War. And I have 24 years retired Air Force. I was a combat commander in Iraq. So I understand a little bit about what's going on with national security. I worked on the oil fields of Alaska for 10 years as a maintenance manager up there. When I retired as the maintenance commander up at Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. And currently I own 2 small businesses. So I'm a member of the Military Affairs Committee here and the Southern Nevada Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horsford?
Well, good afternoon. First, thank you, Justice Lee. Congratulations again on your ascension and historic appointment. To the panel, thank you all for your service and your leadership in our community, and to the candidates who are here today. I'm Stephen Horsford. I'm proud to represent Nevada's 4th Congressional District and to be running for re-election to continue to serve the people of this district. This is the community that I was born and raised in, the community where I've had the opportunity to serve, not only in an elected position, but in leading the largest job training program, Nevada Partners in the Culinary Training Academy for 10 years before I was first elected to Congress. Honored to represent this district on many fronts and to currently serve on the House Armed Services Committee in the House, which is incredibly important because of the representation of Nellis Air Force Base, Creech Air Force Base, the Nevada Test and Training Range, as well as the Hawthorne Army Depot, which are in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horsford. Mr. Shultz?
Hello, I'm Deshan Shultz, also known as Levi Shultz. I'm a veteran as well, 8 years. I served 3 tours in the Persian Gulf on board aircraft carriers. I'm a son to a single mother, raised here in the Las Vegas area. My mother was a CNA. She worked doubles to put food on the table. And I understand more than a lot of people what it's like to serve as an enlisted service member in the barracks that are currently deteriorating under the conditions that our military service members are actively having to endure. And my mother, being a single mother, she continues to work for the state of Nevada as a union worker. And I understand the concerns. I'm acutely aware of what our citizens are facing. And the issues facing veterans are of the utmost importance to me. I have friends that reside in the national cemeteries across this country, and I really value the sacrifice of veterans. Myself, serving on board aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf, working hard to serve our country, I'm acutely aware of what our service members are enduring as well. Thank you so much for your leadership and the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Shultz. Mr. Frazy?
I'm Bruce Frazy, and I'm an attorney, CPA. I was the former director of taxes for Ernst & Young in Miami, Florida. I am here because my wife looked at me one day and said, if you're going to bitch like that, why don't you do something about it? And so I'm here because I'd like to try to do something about it.
Finally, Mr. Lee?
Thank you. Hello, my name is John Lee, former mayor of North Las Vegas. I was also a state assemblyman for 6 years and a state senator for 8 years, the mayor of North Las Vegas for 9 years. I come from a military family also. My father was born in Middlesex, England, Ricelip Air Force Base. My father worked with a gentleman named Francis Gary Powers. And he got shot down over the Soviet Union, so then we went on to New Mexico and then Area 51. But I've served very, very well. I've been a small businessman my whole life, and I didn't have to go into the military because there was nothing actually going on during when I graduated from high school. But I have a lot of success in working with the military in North Las Vegas. 40,000 people in that city have something to do with the military base, and so I've been a very good leader for them, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Let's start with Mr. White on the end. Do you have a question for the panelist?
Gentlemen, I have actually a softball question to you, but it's very intricate. The Valley needs public transportation. I'm not talking about buses. I'm not talking about the loop. I'm not talking about the monorail. We are in dire need of a light rail system. Really. We are growing leaps and bounds since I've been here, and I've been here only 2 years. But I see what's going on. It could thrive here. It could make a big difference for the veterans out towards Nellis, connect the southern towns like Boulder and Henderson and everything of that nature. We're all in the same valley. We need a transportation system. Would you gentlemen be conducive to advocating this on a grand scale? Will it take money? Yes, but the money can be done. What do you think?
Let's start with Mr. Lee.
Thank you very much. I was on the Regional Transportation Commission, and there is from UNLV down to North Las Vegas to the VA hospital, there's a line that is in position there. All the right-of-way access and everything is prepared for it. It is an issue of funding, though. But and as an RTC member, we did everything we could to make sure that transportation was as close as we could and at cost-effective for veterans that could do that needed that kind of service. I don't doubt that the traffic here in this city is just horrible right now. I mean, all of us understand that there, but we do have the right-of-way issues, all the things. It would be a long-term plan, but there is a plan in place now to start that process. It's just with the funding that goes on and the federal funding we can get. Thank you very much, Mr. White.
Frazy?
I think that's a tremendous problem, transportation in all the major cities. But right now the big problem is funding. We somehow forgot how to budget. We forgot that budgeting includes revenue. We've fought over and over again about how much things cost, but you know what? If you don't fund it, if you don't have the revenue sources in place, it's hard to do anything. The first thing we need to resolve is our financial structure in this country and in this city.
Thank you. Mr. Shultz?
Gary, that's absolutely correct. I agree with that. But I first agree that we need to have transparency around how we're funding infrastructure and everything that we do within government work. I think that we have a lot of waste in government. We have to find a way. Everyone's going to talk about funding and that the money is the most important element. To me, the most important element is starting with accountability. We have to have accountability around the spending of our government so that we can allocate it to the infrastructure that we need in order to move Nevadans forward and move them out of this area. There's so much cultural advantage that you get from leaving your area. I was raised here in Las Vegas. The most important part of my development was moving outside of the valley to see how other cities work and see how other people operate. But it all starts with accountability. In order to mobilize our city, we have to have accountability. Then we can move on to how we're going to fund it. And then we can start providing that resource to our citizens.
Thank you. Congressman Horsford?
Mr. White, I agree. We do need light rail throughout the valley to support local residents and local needs. We tend to focus on tourists and tourism, which is very important to the lifeblood of our economy, but not enough attention has been paid to local residents. That's why I'm proud to have voted for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment Act, which is bringing the federal investment. We need our local leaders and the state to ensure they prioritize the request for funding based on the local needs. I used to do a program, or I still do a program called Commuting with Your Congressman, where I would get on an RTC bus and provide constituent services directly to my constituents on the bus. And in doing that, you get to see directly the challenges that they face. And veterans really face a big obstacle in being able to get the support and the access that they need because of the lack of infrastructure, and I'm working to address that.
Thank you. Mr. Flippo?
Yes, we absolutely need a light rail, a transit system that gets out to the outer ring and into the city that's rapid. The local citizens can get in and out of the city without going on the road system. It took us 30 years to get that 215 built. And we need another plan now for the rail. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take funding. But we funded that, right? And it was a 30-year plan. So it's time to get down to the grassroots and design that, right? It would have been nice if while they were doing the ring, if they would have built some stations along the way on the outer ring and things like that they could have had some forethought. But being what it is today, absolutely. Because if we can relieve the road system with all the cars, then with light rail, it'll take a lot of traffic off those roads. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, do you have a question for the candidates?
I do. Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's a bit of an emotional question. 84 years ago, many of the people in this room could not have served in the many branches of the armed forces. The Marines did not admit African Americans. The Army Air Forces, Army Air Corps did not until the Tuskegee Airmen, and of course the Montford Point Marines. And the Navy sailors were not allowed to serve in combat roles, even though Dory Miller was responsible for shooting down many planes at Pearl Harbor. And over the years, it's kind of pain that we've seen injustices to veterans of color, veterans, LGBTQ veterans who have been treated poorly for their and not been recognized for their service. And so we've seen some get upgrades to their discharges or upgrades to awards, but not enough has really been done to talk about the contributions, particularly veterans of color. What are you going to do if elected, or if you are serving, to rectify those shortcomings? Because as a black veteran, it does cause me some pain to look back and think there's veterans that served before me, who brave men and women who haven't been appropriately honored.
Let's start with Mr. Frazy this time.
I think there are all kinds of questions that deal with racism and inequities in this country. I don't have the answers, but I think that one of the things we need to do is learn to sit down at a table and work things out. Look at the facts, look at the details, and come up with results that are fair to everybody. And we've lost the ability to do that. We need to regain it.
Mr. Shultz?
The very watch I'm wearing right now pays tribute to the 332nd Fighter Group, the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails. That's the red stripe on my watch. That's the P-51. I am a LGBTQ man. I'm a gay man. I have a husband. I served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I know what it's like to suppress your identity in service when you're doing something that is so noble for your country. I have the true experience, and I have lived the history. So I think what we should do is we should establish programs and bolster programs around diversity and inclusion in the United States military. I served under Command Equal Opportunity Division when I was in the United States Navy, and I tried to do that every turn I got. I also served as a sexual assault prevention and response representative, and I saw the dichotomy between African Americans and other folks who would report sexual assault crimes in the United States military. So I'm very aware of the disparities in the military, and I will actively fight to bolster those programs.
Thank you. Congressman Horsford?
Thanks. On the Armed Services Committee, I'm on the subcommittee on readiness and personnel, and so this is both personal and important. I'm honored to support and sponsor the Headstones for Honor Act, H.R. 6269, which is about honoring the enslaved individuals who contributed to the military who still have not been honored to this day. I'm also a sponsor of the Sergeant Isaac Woodward and the Sergeant Joseph Maddox GI Bill Restoration Act. This is something that Leader Jim Clyburn is working on in order to actually restore the benefits for GI benefits to those family members of officers and military personnel who never received their full benefits, particularly in housing. More than 40% of our current active duty service members are service members of color. We have to have a system that honors everyone's contributions, that provides equity and inclusion, and that treats people fairly under the law.
Thank you. Mr. Flippo?
Thank you. I would say this: we've come a long way. When I was a combat commander, I was in the 332nd, the Tuskegee Airmen Squadron. We've come a long way from having separation of color in the service. Do we have more to do? We absolutely do, and not just with people of color, but with the entire community and the diversity community. As I think all of you know, the military is a dicosm of the entire United States. And we are a group of people that all come together, and we focus on a mission. And are there people still out there that maybe have not been recognized for things that they did in the service and things like that? Absolutely, we need to resolve that. But as a service, I was in the Air Force. I didn't see a lot of the separation of anything. We had a mission to do, and we all accomplished the mission. So thank you.
Mr. Lee?
So I mentioned my father was with the U-2 program, and when Francis Gary Powers got shot down in the Soviet Union, it was a very dangerous time in this country. And my father would get together with his friends and they would talk quietly among themselves. They didn't brag about what they did in the military. I've noticed that military men and women don't bring up their past very often. I don't think a lot of times we know who's around us and the great leaders and the great Americans that we have surrounding us. But I will tell you this, I believe in diversity, I believe in equity, and I believe in inclusion. And I think in North Las Vegas, 30% of our community is African American, 30% is Hispanic, well, maybe almost 40, and the rest are Asians, us, Asians, and so we look forward in North Las Vegas to provide scholarships for anyone we could that we could help for. We tried to honor everyone we could, but I'm telling you right now, to get a veteran to brag about himself is almost impossible, because when they come into my office, I have to drag it out of them. But if we found out we had a hero in our community, we made a hero out of them publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, do you have a question for the candidates?
And thank you for, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. One of the most hottest concerns on people's minds is immigration policy. Most want a more efficient process for those who come here via legally documented processes. Unfortunately, too many people make this an issue of hate. Too many people make this an issue of just partisan politics. But again, most people just want something comprehensive that's fair. Again, most just want an efficient process for those who come here legally and more stiffer consequences for those who do not come here legally. Without injecting race into your answer, what would it take for you to sponsor some type of comprehensive reform bill?
Let's start with Mr. Shultz this time.
Thank you for actually starting with me. My husband is an immigrant from Mexico. Matter of fact, 4 days ago, we got his employment authorization. It was a lengthy process. Every time you check into USCIS, you would get a 4-week notice, and it would count down. And we're counting the days. My husband lives in Arizona. I live here in Nevada. We're counting the days every single day. It counts down to 1 week, and then it says it's going to take a little longer than usual, right? But this happened to us 4 times. We could not effectively plan. If we're going to demand that people come to the United States in a legal fashion, we have to provide them with a viable way and pathway to citizenship. My husband is an architect. He's a skilled laborer. And the time that it took is unsatisfactory for someone who's a skilled laborer with a clean background who just wants to come to the United States and be with his husband. It's unacceptable, and I definitely would. This issue personally affects me.
Thank you. Congressman Horsford?
Well, not only would I have and I will continue to be a leader on comprehensive immigration reform. In fact, in 2013, I was one of 5 original sponsors of H.R. 15, which was the bipartisan comprehensive immigration bill. The Senate voted 67 members in support of the bill, and it came to the House, and unfortunately, then Speaker Boehner refused to bring that bill for a vote, even though there were bipartisan support for the bill. Too often, people use this issue for political reasons and not to focus on the people who are stuck in a broken immigration system. I am a son of an immigrant mother who came to the United States when she was 12 from Trinidad with my grandmother, and my mother has now earned her right to full citizenship after a lengthy process of being a legal permanent resident. And many of my constituents that I represent are people that are DACA holders and TPS holders. And yes, we also have to address the border security, and that's why I just voted on the appropriations package that provided billions of dollars of additional funding to secure our border here between the United States and Mexico.
Thank you. Mr. Flippo?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We do need to solve it, and we need to solve it in Congress. What we don't need is executive orders to be dictating our border security, and that's what's happening, and that's why we keep going back and forth. Congress needs to get involved and solve this problem with policy. I've been to the border 6 times. I've talked to the cartels, I've talked to the immigrants, I've talked to the NGOs down there, and I've talked to border security. I'm going again next month because it's such an important issue. And we have to understand it, and we have to put, as a military guy, you get boots on the ground, and you have to understand it firsthand, and that's where we're at. We need people. People are out there right now helping us solve the problems. There's things like the Dignity Act, and there's things like the 8-step program for border security, the 12-step program for border security. We need to look at all of those, and we need to come up with a solution in Congress so that we're not securing our border with executive orders.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
This is the one or two top biggest problems and issues that we have in the country right now. And I'd tell you honestly, if we knew and we know how good America is, we would try to come too. I'm not trying to say that they don't understand how great America is. But the first thing we need to do is we need to shut that wall. When I was in construction, we would have people that would come over here. They would work for a summer or a season, and then would send some money home to their family, and they would buy a tractor, and they'd go back to their farm in Mexico. We had a great relationship at that period of time. But the people coming across the border now are not those family people anymore. I see so many Chinese people coming. It's impossible to get out of China unless somebody opens the door and sends you over here. And then I don't know what they're hoping to get happens with the relationship with China back and forth. We have got to shut this thing down. We have got to figure out how we're going to do our visas properly. We have got to know how we're going to understand who is coming to our country. We have to protect our country from what's going on in this world right now. And it's not as easy as somebody from Mexico walking over the border anymore. It's dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frazy?
It's really interesting to me that in this country we're seeing so many opportunities to work together and so few times that we actually work together. Immigration is an issue that involves not just the border state of Texas. It involves all of us. Anybody who's run a company knows that we need immigrants, that the Statue of Liberty is out there, been there a long time. Immigrants are an important part of what this country is. This is a country of immigrants.
Thank you, Mr. Frazy. Mr. DeFalco, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for being here. My question is, should we be supporting Ukraine and Israel? In Israel, they were invaded by terrorists. In Ukraine, they were invaded by a murderous dictator who's an adversary to the United States of America. So should we be doing what it takes to support both of those countries?
Let's start with Congressman Horsford.
The answer is yes. In the case of Ukraine, the invasion